spiritual elitism is a problem.
Oh.
And I'm not trying to, and I'm recognizing that that's a problem.
Right.
I'm simply saying that that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing is recognizing that you can go faster by yourself, but you can go farther in a group. I recognize that. I could evolve by myself, not a problem. But that's not what I'm doing. That's not what we're doing. We're here to say, hey, come on, guys, let's go as a group.
So can you please tell me what you mean evolve?
I'm just talking about, if we talk about physics, it's just a frequency band of going from a low vibrational frequency such as sorrow, misery, fear, scarcity mentality to a higher frequency. That's all I'm saying. Is that when someone would say like, is that sound wave is like a 600 hertz sound wave, is it more evolved than a 200 hertz sound wave? The answer to that is yes, it is. Because when they talk about evolution,
just like a station.
But I'm not passing judgment on the frequency.
Right.
I'm simply using elevation as an increase in your frequency. Is that less triggering? Right? Is that less triggering to say an increase in your frequency as opposed to elevation? When I say elevation or ascension, it's just simply a synonymous way for me to say increase your frequency. If there's a better word that doesn't trigger people to convey that idea, then please tell me, and I'll start using that one more frequently. I'm just trying to convey ideas that there's a difference between low vibration and high vibration. High vibration isn't good. Low vibration isn't bad. Like, I like rap music, right? I grew up listening to rap music, right? Now I recognize that, okay, it does certain things to me, and I would prefer, and it gives me certain ideas, certain feelings, and not good or bad, just a certain type.
Right.
But if I would prefer to have different, like love and kindness and inclusivity and peace and love and stuff like that, then the frequency band that generates that type of emotion.
Does Celine Dion make you feel like higher frequency?
I would say that Celine Dion may make me feel slightly more elevated than rap music. But my point of saying that is that if we get paralyzed in casting judgment about almost everything that we come across, and I'm not saying you are.
No, I'm saying measurement paralyzes people.
But it's absolutely essential to measure to see where you're going. It's kind of like, I want to go to your house, right? But I have no idea to get there, and nor do I care how I get there. How do I get there? Do I walk that way? Do I walk that way? How do I get to the destination without measuring, right? And so part of this is just a map of the terrain to say, okay, cool. We know that there's a map of infinite frequency. Well, okay, cool. You can go any place that you want. Where do you want to go? Well, I don't know. Okay, cool. Then we'll go nowhere. But I want to go someplace. Cool. Where do you want to go? Okay, I want to go here. How do we get there? I have no idea. Okay, well, then we'll wait until we figure out how to get there. Oh, okay, I know how we might get there.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And so the process of trying to achieve the end result, this is what I talked about earlier, is that we decide on a result, right? A condition of frequency, of pressure and frequency, of light and darkness, right? Of all sorts of whatever measurements we want to have. You say, I want the absolute color green. Okay, well, how do we now get to that green? It's like, I don't know. What's green made of? What is green? It's like, and then we start measuring it and start quantifying. And then we start setting parameters to say, okay, if I want to go to green, here's all the things that I need to do in order to get to green. Now, if I do those things, will I get to green? Well, yeah, that's reverse engineering the journey. Most people say, well, I'm going to take this step without really caring where it's bringing them. And this step without really even caring. So next thing you know, they're like, I wanted to get green. How come I'm not at green? It's like, well, number one, you weren't focused on green and you weren't focused on the process, right? And so to find a way to let people know that whether it's anything, whether it's having $1 billion, whether it's having a baby, whether it's having a vacation home in Florida, all of these things are achievable, all of them. But there's certain requirements that must be met to reach that frequency. That's all I'm saying. And if there are requirements, what are the requirements? And I don't know what the requirements are in half the shit, but it's like, well, can we discover what the requirements are? And if so, do we now have enough emotion and willpower to implement those things that we know we have to do to get to those things? That's the journey. That's the journey right there.
It makes a lot of sense on what you're saying. I just want to understand how you get to decide what frequency people are at.
It's just like, how do you determine what temperature is in this room? Just discernment, right? If I've never been in a room with temperature before, then I might say, ooh, I don't know how I feel. It's like, am I hot? Am I cold? Am I somewhere in between? I don't know. But all of a sudden, you go to a place that's 107 degrees, like, oh shit, that was pretty cool to be in a 77-degree room when I now know what 107 is like. Or when you go in a 47-degree room, like, holy shit, that was cold. Man, this is so much warmer. I feel so much better in there. So it's not a matter of saying that we can't decide because we're passing judgment. It's not judgment, it's discernment, right? It's like, is this food tasty? Well, it depends on what you mean by tasty. Is the food hot? Depends on what you mean by hot. Is that person nice? Depends on what you mean by nice. These are not judgments. They're just simply discernments and quantifications of a state of being. Without judgment, to say that high frequency, and I've said this multiple times, that high frequency isn't good. But some people want to say it's good, that, oh, you have to be good or you have to not be bad. I say that's bullshit. I say that all the time, that those are just labels that confuse the situation, but are the limiting factors in someone's reality when they're stuck in duality. So by simply identifying that these are just extremes of the same thing, everything in between is the same, just different degrees. And then we can say, okay, cool. Now I know there's 1,000 different choices. I want to choose this one. Say, awesome. Well, if you're here, how do you get from there to there? Say, okay, cool. I see that there's 967 steps from here to there as far as frequency bands or colors on a rainbow or calories that you counted or pounds on a scale or money in a bank account. They're just simply quantification devices that allow us to say, instead of being paralyzed by the infinitude of any choice that we can make. And we just like, well, like you said before, a process by analysis. Or by counting, you get paralyzed. Yes, that's true. But it's absolutely essential to overcome the paralysis to then use the counting to get to where you want to go. Otherwise, we're lost. And we'll never get to where we need to go. And so if someone else has an alternative idea on how to get to the state of being or emotionality or mentality or physicality that they want to be at, or even a geographic location in space and time, how do you then get to that spot? As opposed to say, well, I don't know. It's like, well, should we discover how you get to that point? And if it's a function of how do I understand, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, it's like, okay, well, in order to understand that principle, you have to know basic arithmetic and then pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, etc. Or how do I understand what a Cabernet Sauvignon tastes like? I want to make sure that I can distinctly tell a 1984 Cabernet Sauvignon from the Mendez Valley of the Andes Mountains in Argentina. I just made that shit up. I don't know. It doesn't even exist. However, you then say, oh, here's the ways that you can get to that location of anything that you want. Of anything you want. I want to make the world's best, saffron rice. What does that even mean?
Listen, you've got to have an intent. This goes back to simplicity. You have an intention and you go that direction.
Yeah.
Some people are on your bus and some people are not.
But how do you determine what your direction is?
You have an intention.
Okay, but what determines what your intention is?
You do.
Okay, but if say, what if I don't understand what intentionality even means? Like, and how that then plays out subconsciously or consciously in the ways that I think, feel.
Whether you want to go to my house or you want to go to.
But I have attention. Most of us have intentions of about 1,000 things a day, but we don't necessarily want to materialize those things because we haven't thought long enough about it or intensely enough about it. We haven't felt intensely enough about it. And we haven't then got this physical machine to do those things. So intentions, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Intentions are very flimsy and weak at best because intention is just an idea that floats through our head, right? But an idea that then is amplified by focusing on that idea, that intention.
An action of energy.
Yeah, that intention then turns into something that's more profound and more focused and more powerful to create the reality that we're looking for. So intentions, are almost like a dime a dozen, but actions are, at least on this physical plane, because we're living in a physical world, or even emotionally. I had intentions to be nice to that person, but I want to be an asshole. Okay, well, what good were the intentions?
Right.
And so I totally hear what you're saying. And what I'm trying to do is simply say, all of these perspectives can be overcome if we want, but we don't have to overcome them. It's not like overcoming them is good, right? Achieving your purpose is not good. It's not bad. Being elevated in frequency is not good, and it's not bad. It's just a state of being that we can choose from, right? Enslaving the planet is not good or bad.
So just saying that you don't jive with someone,
Yeah, but
okay.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
So to take this greater than thou aspect,
Yeah, what's greater than that? What do you mean?
where this started about people in evolution, and if they're elevating, and if they're
I totally agree that people are hijacking an aspect of this for almost, like we said, spiritual escapism or spiritual supremacy, right?
the spiritual crew that is headed in the same direction as you. What's the goal?
Well, I can only speak to what my goal is.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm aligning my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions with my goal. And that's simply to raise the consciousness of humanity. Because I've had glimpses of me doing that myself. And I simply say, wow, I've experienced all sorts of things when I'm at a lower frequency, and they're gorgeous and they're wonderful. And I don't lament those and don't regret those. And I'm not going to feel shame about those things. I simply honor them and say, well, what more can we do? And that's just me, maybe being insatiable, but having a glimpse into like a rung or two higher and say, oh, cool, let's get up to that rung. Let's see what we can see. Oh, let's get up to that next rung. Let's see what we can see. Oh, let's get up that rung. Let's see what we can. And so the purpose for me this is just part of kind of who I am, to say, I don't want to do this by myself. I can move off to an ashram and do this by myself, but I want to have the people that I love and care about, that I see in aspects of their life that they are suffering. And if that's okay, if they choose to suffer, then I'm not going to say, no, you shouldn't suffer. I'm learning that's like, no, it's okay to suffer. That's part of the experience. And if people want to suffer, let them. And so books I would have never read, when you suggest them, I simply say, wow, I never would have looked at that from that perspective. And so I'm grateful. And that wouldn't have occurred if the people in my life I made to be like me, made to be little mini-me's, right? Instead of saying like, wow, let everybody be drawn to the things that get them excited, that give them, satisfaction, and that make their hearts light up. And then be open enough and disciplined enough to let them tell you their story, so you can say, wow, I never thought about that before. And that's what I'm kind of excited about, because I'm learning. I'm not a master, not a guru, none of that stuff. I'm just a guy having an experience, and I'm sharing that experience. And other people may say, I'd like to have those experiences too. Or, I've had some experiences and here they are. Oh, wow. I never saw that coming. I never thought of that. There's no way I could have thought of that because of the makeup that I'm in. But if I simply say, oh, despite the fact that I never would have come up with that on my own, I'm grateful that they shared their perspective, because now I can now make that part of my own through the experience I've had through them and with them, not just through them as like a usury type of device. Like, I just have friends so I can live vicariously through them. No, it's simply saying, no, I want to celebrate the joys and the victories and the sorrows, or not celebrate the sorrows, but interact with the sorrows, however, the full range, from being just as brokenhearted and just as down and sad and traumatized as they are, to also then be able to say, oh, cool, well, can we transmute this? And only if we want to, right? That's all. Like I said, I love these conversations because I get to hear your perspective, and that's not a perspective I would have come up with my own, but in an attempt to try to understand that perspective, I can say, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. I never thought about, how, like you guys both said about spiritual elitism, like, I just haven't seen that. But now when you mention, like, okay, man, I guess I can see that. I guess I can see how people are doing that.